Thank you for joining us for our 5 on 5. Tonight we're sitting down with U.S. Senator Ron Wyden. Thank you for joining us, Senator.
Thanks for having me again.
Of course. Well, you held town halls with Douglas and Josephine County residents the last couple of days. Are you taking anything you learned from there back to Washington?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of concern, of course, about natural resources policies, climate change, holding down the cost of prescription drugs. I'm very hopeful that the Congress will pass my legislation to finally change the rules and let Medicare negotiate to hold down the cost of these very expensive drugs, and they were really good sessions.
That's great to hear, and the midterms are just a few months away, and Senate Democrats were unable this week to change Senate rules to potentially push voting rights legislation through. So how does this end?
Well, first of all, you often don't win big battles coming out of the gate, and in particular, I'm going to be looking at ways to highlight bipartisan aspects of this. For example, I'm the first United States Senator to be elected completely by mail. It's noteworthy that the second senator to be elected by mail is my friend, Senator Gordon Smith, a Republican. And we were making a lot of progress in this country to keep vote by mail bipartisan until Donald Trump came along and started spewing a bunch of lies about vote by mail. So I'm going to do everything I can to build on the Oregon tradition, because I will tell you, I believe vote by mail is the gold standard of casting an informed ballot. It's how people can go home, they can think about the issues. I'm going to do everything I can to make it bipartisan again, as we started off in Oregon.
Well, thank you for that. And the White House said this week it has a $50 million plan to use controlled fires and logging to prevent future catastrophic fires in Oregon, California, and a few other states. So what do you know about that effort, and how does it dovetail with legislation you've brought forward to curb wildfires?
It is very much in line with my proposals, and I know quite a bit about it. First of all, I think Oregonians know that these fires are not your grandfather's fires. They are bigger, they're more powerful, they're leaping over rivers. You're going to have to take much bolder steps. And the White House plan is in line with two of the legislative efforts I pursued, going in there and thinning out these overstock stands that get, when it's hot and dry, they're just almost magnets for fire. And then the White House has been very interested in something that I got money for in the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and that is prescribed burns, where you go in there when it's the cooler weather. You have a carefully controlled burn. You avoid problems when it's hot and dry in the summer.
Well, thank you, Senator. We will be right back after this short break. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Tonight we are sitting down with U.S. Senator Ron Wyden. Now, Congressman Cliff Bentz this month came out against the River Democracy Act that you introduced. He said it doesn't allow for sustainable use of the land and allowed inadequate local input. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, with respect to input, I've gone out and solicited for months and months nominations for rivers, been out listening with local officials. I've had more than 970 in-person town hall meetings. We haven't been able to do those during the pandemic, but we've had lots and lots of sessions getting input. Second, with respect to the nature of the plan, the Forest Service, the professionals on the ground, have already testified in front of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee that what we're doing is consistent with their plans.
And how concerned are you, kind of switching gears now, to the situation in Ukraine?
Well, obviously, Putin is trying to score points, act like a foreign policy strongman when he's hurting with respect to his domestic policies at home. So I think it's very clear that we're going to need to be vigilant and make sure that he understands that we're going to counter aggression.
Well, thank you for that. And then moving into just the topic of COVID, what are you hearing in Washington, and what are you experiencing here in Oregon? What are you seeing across the board?
I've been crisscrossing the state, going to hospitals and vaccination sites everywhere from the metropolitan areas to rural areas. I just came from meetings here in southwestern Oregon. We've got real challenges, both in terms of staffing. We just so need nurses. The system right now just has really perverse incentives. There's much more generous reimbursement for what are called travelers, people who can get 3 times the wage that a nurse might get at a hospital here in the Valley. Normally, that's something that isn't used very extensively, and I just think that the nurses and the personnel have really a size 7 halo, but some of these companies, these traveler companies, I think are taking advantage of a pandemic.
Well, Senator, thank you for joining us in studio today. We will be right back after.
Thanks for having me.